Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Thursday, March 11th, an estimated 90% of children in Syria are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. The Vatican appeals for a generous Holy Land collection. And we look ahead to the upcoming celebration of 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines. In the Vatican, I'm Francesca Merlo. At almost a decade after the start of the civil war in Syria, UNICEF has highlighted in a new report the terrible impact of the hostilities on children, noting that an estimated 90% are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. Father Benedict Mayaki tells us more.
The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, reports that 10 years of humanitarian crisis and hostilities in Syria have had a profound effect on the situation of most of the children in the country. A recent statement from UNICEF notes that about 90% of children are in need of humanitarian assistance, a figure that represents a 20% increase in the past year alone. The children have been impacted by violence, displacement, severed family ties, and lack of access to vital services caused by the massive physical devastation of the country. In northern Syria in particular, millions of children are displaced, with many families having fled violence several times. Families are also forced to pay the price for a worsening economy and rising food insecurity. All these challenges are further exacerbated by the ongoing COVID-19 health emergency. UNICEF said that as the hostilities enter into its 10th year, the Syrian crisis remains first and foremost a protection crisis, as grave violations of children's rights, including recruitment, abductions, killing, and maiming, continue unabated. UNICEF also notes that between 2011 and 2020, about 12,000 children were killed or injured, and more than 5,700 of them, some as young as 7, were recruited in the fighting. Meanwhile, education in the country is underfunded, overstretched, and fragmented. UNICEF notes that as of early 2021, 1 in 3 schools inside Syria could no longer be used because they had either been damaged or had been repurposed for military usage. The resulting effect is that nearly 2.45 million children are out of school in Syria, while those who are able to attend classes do so in overcrowded spaces with insufficient water, heating, and sanitation facilities. UNICEF Director General Henrietta Fore said that this cannot just be another sad anniversary overshadowed by the international community as children and families in Syria continue to struggle. She called on the international community to make every effort to bring peace to Syria and solicit support for the children. I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.
At the same time of the release of the UNICEF report, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has urged the international community to continue to reach all Syrians in need of humanitarian assistance. Nathan Morley reports.
During a press briefing in New York marking the 10th anniversary of the Syrian conflict, Antonio Guterres said it was imperative to continue to reach all Syrians in need of humanitarian assistance. Furthermore, the UN Secretary-General warned that the situation remained a living nightmare in the country.
Syria has fallen off the front page, and yet the situation remains a living nightmare. It is impossible to fully fathom the extent of the devastation in Syria, but its people have endured some of the greatest crimes the world has witnessed this century.
Noting that some 60% of Syrians are currently at risk of hunger this year, Mr. Guterres noted that more humanitarian access was needed. He said intensified cross-line and cross-border deliveries were essential to reach everyone in need everywhere.
It is clear that if a war lasts 10 years, the international security governance system that we have is not effective. This is something that should be a source of reflection about everybody involved.
Guterres said the United Nations would continue its pursuit of a negotiated political settlement in line with Security Council Resolution 2254. He said the parties in Syria have the opportunity to demonstrate a willingness to find common ground and recognise the need for Syrians whom they represent to move beyond a perpetual state of conflict. For Vatican Radio, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
The Pope has for years called for an end to the conflict in Syria, which erupted in 2011 in protests against the ruling regime before spiralling into violence. The ensuing war has killed more than 387,000 people, ravaged key infrastructure, and displaced millions. During a service in southern Iraq on Saturday, Pope Francis made a plea for unity after war. Let us ask for this in praying for the whole Middle East. Here, I think especially of neighbouring war-torn Syria, he said. Cardinal Leonardo Sandri, the prefect of the Congregation for the Eastern Churches, is once again appealing to Christians throughout the world to support the annual Holy Land Collection, which takes place each year on Good Friday. The Holy Land Collection was born from the desire of the popes to maintain a strong link between all the faithful and the holy places, according to the congregation. It is a main source of material support for Christian life in the Holy Land and the privileged instrument that the Church provides her children in other parts of the world to express solidarity with the ecclesial communities of the Middle East. Christopher Wells tells us more.
In his letter, Cardinal Sandri reminds Christians, every Holy Week we spiritually become pilgrims to Jerusalem and contemplate the mystery of our Lord Jesus Christ, dead and risen. This experience, he continued, is the foundation of the new model of fraternity that derives from the work of reconciliation and pacification among all peoples carried out by the Crucified One. The Cardinal notes that Pope Francis reminds us of this gift of reconciliation in the encyclical Fratelli Tutti. The Pope, he says, wants to help us consider all of our relationships in the light of the principle of fraternity. Fraternity is based on the love of Christ on the cross, where Jesus halted the spiral of enmity, broke the vicious circle of hatred, and opened for everyone the way of reconciliation with the Father, among us, and with creation itself. For Christians of the Holy Land, as for the rest of the world, 2020 was a year of trials, says Cardinal Sandri, due to necessary isolation, the loss of work on account of the lack of pilgrims, and the difficulties in living with dignity and providing for their children. He notes, too, that due to the pandemic, the economic aid normally provided by the Holy Land Collection also fell short last year. Citing Pope Francis, Cardinal Sandri invites Christians to consider the figure of the Good Samaritan as a model of active charity, and to help overcome attitudes of indifference. In these circumstances, Cardinal Sandri expresses his hope that this year's Holy Land Collection will be an opportunity for everyone not to ignore the difficult situation of our brothers and sisters in the holy places, but rather to lighten their burdens. At the same time, he says, we must not give up on taking care of the holy places that are concrete proof of the mystery of the incarnation of the Son of God and the offering of his life for us and for our salvation. Cardinal Sandri concludes his letter by conveying the deep gratitude of Pope Francis to all those who in various ways strive for the success of the collection, in fidelity to the participation that the Church requires of all her children. I'm Christopher Wells.
The U.S. House of Representatives passed the American Rescue Plan Act on Wednesday, handing President Joe Biden's administration the go-ahead to launch its $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill aimed at stabilizing the nation's economy. Following this latest development, the president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, USCCB, Archbishop Jose H. Gomez of Los Angeles, and the chairman of 6 USCCB committees released a statement. The bishops expressed support for provisions in the Rescue Plan Act that will provide relief for the needy and the vulnerable amid the ongoing pandemic, but also voiced their concerns about the bill's lack of protection for unborn life. An important event on the family is taking place here in Rome next week. The online event will take place on the 19th of March to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the publication of Pope Francis's apostolic exhortation Amoris Laetitia, a document on the beauty and joy of love in the family. During the webinar, Pope Francis will kick off the Amoris Laetitia family year. Robin Gomes has more on the story.
The 19th March virtual event entitled Our Daily Love is being organized by the Vatican Dicastery for the Laity, the Family and Life, the Diocese of Rome, and the Pontifical John Paul II Theological Institute, all based in Rome. At the event, Pope Francis will launch the Amoris Laetitia Family Year, which will conclude on June the 26th, 2022, on the occasion of the 10th World Meeting of Families in Rome. Amoris Laetitia, the Latin for the joy of love, is the post-synodal apostolic exhortation of Pope Francis, which was the result of the two-part synod of the family held in the Vatican in October 2014-2015. Dated 19 March 2016 and released on 8th April that year, it addresses issues regarding the pastoral care of families. In a joint statement on Wednesday, the three organizers said that the online event is the beginning of a path rather than a celebration, as the apostolic exhortation contains a wealth that is yet to be discovered. They explained that the Pope wants to provoke the entire Church into action, and in this regard, the three entities intend to offer a contribution that is capable of blending pastoral care and theology in view of the World Meeting of Families. Next week's online event, divided into two parts, will be streamed live for all to follow on the YouTube channel of the John Paul II Institute, as well as on the platforms of the other two promoters. The year dedicated to the family on the 5th anniversary of Amoris Laetitia was called by Pope Francis on December the 27th, 2020, to draw the fruits of the post-synodal apostolic exhortation and make the Church closer to the families around the world who are severely tried by the pandemic. The reflections of the 10th World Meeting of Families that will conclude the Amoris Laetitia family year will be made available to ecclesial communities and families to accompany them on their journey, the organizers said. I am Robin Gomes.
And finally, Pope Francis will mark the 500th year of Christianity in the Philippines with a Holy Mass on Sunday in Rome St. Peter's Basilica. It is believed that the first Mass was celebrated on Philippine soil on the 31st of March 1521 on the island of Limasawa. The Catholic Church in the Philippines will formally inaugurate the year-long 5th centenary celebrations on Easter Sunday, the 4th of April. On that occasion, Archbishop Romulo Valles of Davao will open the holy door of pilgrim churches across the nation. The theme of the centenary is Gifted to Give. Speaking on the phone from Davao, Archbishop Valles explained to Vatican Radio the joy of 500 years of the Christian faith in the country.
Faith is a gift from God, and so we are joyful in this special Jubilee year. And also, we are joyful because our experience is that faith has given meaning to life. In a sense, faith helps us to navigate through the journey of life. And also, let me add, it is a faith that is lived not only personally and as an individual, but also it is a faith lived in families. So beautiful. We are helped in our faith not only by individuals, but by families. Therefore, what does it mean to be a witness of faith in Jesus in Asia? I would like to use what Pope Francis would say. We witness our faith in Jesus in Asia by showing the joy of believing. It is joyful to believe and entrust our lives in Jesus. Life is difficult, especially in our country, but because of faith, it helps us to be strong. In spite of the storms of life, we are trustful. We can afford still to smile because we know that the Lord is with us. That is why we celebrate this special year with joy. Joy in the Lord, the joy of believing in the Lord.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, and to hear this broadcast as a podcast, please be sure to visit our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. Many thanks go to Patrizio Ciprari and Alessandro Menghi in studio. In the Vatican, I'm Francesca Mertlo.